whether I would ever vote for this guy.
Why?
Because I think that he has gotten wrapped up in this guilt about minorities and their plight. And I think he's using a lot of the old democratic cryptic phrases about we've got to do things for people in the poor neighborhoods, as though everything is society's fault and it's not a lot of their own fault. I've seen brand new projects go up, and within a week they're full of graffiti and you can smell urine all over the place. So I think Jack Kemp, I think Jack Kemp is falling into that trap. And here's another thing. Roseanne Barr, who butchered our national anthem and thought nothing of it, came out for Bill Clinton today as though we really care anyway. Typical left-wing Hollywood. These are the type of people who are still in the Democratic Party.
Wait a minute, John. Not Charlton Heston. Don't denigrate all of Hollywood.
No, well, yeah, but those
not
people...
Not Charlton Heston.
But aren't those people looked upon as freaks?
Not Bruce Willis. Not Arnold Schwarzenegger. Right?
Yeah, but they're looked upon as strange people. Or
wait a minute. I know a guy who spends hours at a time in midnight trysts with Hilly. You're laughing.
I wonder who you could be talking
I'm
about.
exposing you now, John. I'm exposing you.
Hey, Jay.
What?
I know a talk show host that gives more time to a racist, vicious, vile demagogue called Hilly than any other caller.
I wonder who you could mean by that.
Thank you.
What is it about Hilly that charms us both?
I think he intrigues us because he brings out the primitiveness in all of us.
Well, maybe. I don't know. But all I know is I understand you're having lengthy midnight trysts with the guy.
I don't play that game.
All right. John, thanks for calling.
Thank you.
All right. That, ladies and gentlemen, was the one and only, the ubiquitous John from Staten Island. This is Jay Diamond on WABC. Show participants in the world. I say participant because to say mere caller doesn't do the man justice.
Thank you again, Jay.
Thank you, John.
Jay, we finally disagree on something. But I guess that's what happens when you converse too long with Hilly.
We disagree. We disagree on only one thing. You have too high an opinion of me.
I don't think so. You always live up to our expectations. But you know, Jay, when you said Pat Buchanan sounded like a mean SOB, I think you should take into account that when you're not afraid to tackle any issue, you don't pander, you're passionate about what you believe in, and you're in politics on a high level like he is, you're going to sound harsh and mean sometimes. You know, you know Bob Grant personally, and what a funny pussycat he is when he's not talking politics.
I've never met the man. I don't know to whom you're referring.
Yeah, nice try.
Okay.
But, you know, if anyone out there, Jay, intends to vote for that, the Pillsbury Doughboy, Bill Clinton, because they're concerned that...
Pillsbury Doughboy?
Yeah, he looks like a clump of dough that someone stuck two eyes and a nose on.
Pretty good, you know?
I'll write for you someday. You know, if they're concerned about Pat Buchanan's anti-Semitism, and they intend to vote for Bill Clinton because they're concerned about the Republican Pat Buchanan being an anti-Semite, let them remember this. The Democratic Party has become the home for anti-Semites. Jesse Jackson, who said after the Kent State shootings that they should have turned their rifles on the Jewish landlords, and 20-something years later, still the anti-Semite with the Hymietown crack. The Democrats threw a fundraiser for that vicious anti-Semite and thug Gus Savage, who took a shot at his opponent in Chicago. David Dinkins, Democrat again, who tied the hands of the police in Crown Heights and then said that blacks were the greater victim, even though it was Jewish property that was destroyed and a Jew was murdered because he was a Jew. And not only has the healer made no attempt to find the murderers of Yankel Rosenbaum, today he made an excuse for them, siding again with the criminal, as he did in the Korean deli in Washington Heights. He said the murder happened because of a lack of jobs and services in the community. Well, Jay, the people who knew Joey Fama said he was looking for a job with the mafia, so he shot Yusef Hawkins to impress the mob. Should we let him out of jail to roam the streets like the other murderers of Yankel Rosenbaum? Because after all, he was just looking for work. And by the way, Jay, last night, Hilly was saying what a great debater and speaker Al Sharpton was. Adolf Hitler was a great speaker and sounded perfectly logical to the racists of his day. He and Leonard Jeffries were never at a loss for words. Did that make them right? And are they not racist demagogues? You know, Al Sharpton is a guy who has a rehearsed response ready to go because he's in constant conflict with the rational world And he knows he's going to have to be ready to respond to the heat he's going to feel.
Well, I saw a quote attributed to Sharpton in today's paper. I don't recall which paper it was, but he said, "I'm attending a memorial march today in Crown Heights for Gavin Cato and only for Gavin Cato." Well, now, I can only presume that by the adverb only, he means to the exclusion of Yanko Rosenbaum.
There you go, Jay. Does any more have to be said?
Only if you're Sharpton, yes. He's always got something more to say.
Yeah.
I, however, in the presence of John from Staten Island, am rendered speechless.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Is that all?
That's it, Jay.
Now, come on. You can go a little longer
No,
than that.
I'm,
Come on, I'm
hey,
giving myself a
you give me
manicure
plenty
here.
of time, and I appreciate it. You know,
Hey, by the way, John,
yes.
as long as I have you, because the other guy refuses to call me for some reason. You know who I'm referring to, ladies and
That could be a
gentlemen.
number of people these days.
That's true. Ladies and gentlemen, I refer, of course, to John's spiritual brother, a member of the fraternity of talk radio, probably the ranking member of the talk radio fraternity, a man who is venerated and honored every time he picks up his legendary phone and condescends to call a program. I'm talking about the great Frank from Queens.
We are the Frank fanatics, Jay.
And Frank has yet to make his inaugural call to my new program, but I have a sneaking suspicion the night is still young, and before this night is spent, Frank from Queens will manifest himself on this ether, ladies and gentlemen.
We are at the ramparts with a broken bourbon bottle.
Everybody concentrate. Everybody in the audience, put one finger. I'm putting my right index finger on my right temple, my left index finger on my left temple. Join me, John. Repeat. Frank, 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 Frank. Let's see if we can draw him out of the ether. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was John from Staten Island. Ladies and gentlemen, right now I want to talk to John from, where is this? Hello, John.
Hey, I've since Monday night by my radio. I've been unable to call because since first hearing your dulcet tones, I've been transfixed, transferred, transmogrified, galvanized, unable to move until your mental telepathy message reached me tonight. Jay, you're like the General Douglas MacArthur of talk radio. You have returned, or even better, like General Napoleon, returning from your exile with the Radio Elba. Your legions have flocked to your banner, sire, and I am here to do you homage.
Frank, the only homage is the way you've participated in the past, participating tonight. And Frank, the thrill that I feel in my viscera as I think, as I contemplate, as I relish the thought of your participation in the months, yes, years to come.
Well, Jay, it will be a definite pleasure and honor to do so.
Frank, join me into a journey of enlightenment. Frank, don't stop now. Join me and join the audience and promise us that you will be here for years and years and years to come.
Why, it's the nicest thing you could have said, Jay.
Yeah, you know I mean it, and I speak for the entire audience and say how much I've always appreciated your contributions, entertaining us, informing us, and making us know that you're there. Frank, we're going to get caught. We'll speak to you soon, I hope. Viva Frank! What is...
Jay, the Democrats and the liberals keep making fun and poo-pooing the Republicans for bringing up family values because they don't like being reminded that it's been their policies, their pandering, and their tolerance since the 60s that's caused this current crisis. The anything goes attitude that's produced people who speak like this, Jay. Hey, man, I'm just doing my own thing, man. Who are you to tell me what to do, you Nazi? Who's your hero, Tricky Dick? The lowering of standards by the liberal Hollywood, despite Ronald Reagan and Charles Heston and a couple of others, even a stop clock is right twice a day. You know, Hollywood, where you can't even take your kid to a movie today without having them exposed to filthy language and gore galore before they're 5 years old, so those hypocrites in Hollywood can make millions of dollars. And then they condemn capitalism in the 1980s as the decade of greed and decadence. And when the Republicans speak of family values, Jay, Everyone knows what they're speaking about. It's no mystery. Simple things like telling your kids to respect public and private property. There was a survey the other day, Jay, that showed over 40% of kids in the schools didn't think there was anything wrong with cheating on tests. Little things like this. And so what if you can point to a couple of Republicans that have fallen from grace? Even a good working clock has a couple of worn-out parts. The fact is, Jay, there is a family values crisis in this country, and it's only the Republicans that would have the guts to bring it up, notwithstanding their own blemishes. And what the voice of reason in the morning, who doesn't tolerate anyone disagreeing with him and cuts them off, what he calls the Republicans being taken over by the far right is simply the Republicans having the guts to address issues like welfare and immigration and standards, which the Democrats are too cowardly to address. And Jay, I ask you, what's wrong with being called on the far right? I hear a lot of sincere patriotism from the right, because it's from the gut with passion, not this convoluted and intellectualized patriotism that's contrived just to make the liberal appear as a thinker. You know, Jay, the type that would sit down after Pearl Harbor and say, now, first, let me make sure we didn't do anything to cause this before I react. And the Democratic Party is the party of perverts, as Pat Buchanan said. Every guru-seeking, sackcloth-wearing, misfit, malcontent anarchist singing Kumbaya has found a home in the Democratic Party.
What is Kumbaya?
Some dopey song that they made up to make them sound like they're from some world of love or whatever.
Oh, but where did it originate?
I think it came out of the 60s and, you know, the flower power and all that other stuff. And those weirdos. And by the way, Jay, you know, all of this promised economic recovery and the spending power and affluence that Bill Clinton is promising if he's elected, well, when the Republicans brought that all about for over 10 years until George Bush signed that dumb Democratic tax plan, the liberals and the Democrats called all of this greed and decadence. Now, Bill Clinton isn't advocating a return to greed and decadence, is he? They're all hypocrites, Jay. It's really disgusting.
Are they all hypocrites? Or you mean just the Democrats are hypocrites?
Liberals, Democrats.
I'm getting more jaded with all politics. You know that I shouldn't say this to be on the radio. I'm losing interest in it totally. I really mean that.
Well, it goes on.
Maybe it's a desire to escape. You're right. It goes on ad infinitum, ad nauseum. But I just am losing interest. I think I'm cynical about both parties. I'm not really enthusiastic about either one.
Well, I know I'm not enthusiastic about the Democrats. That's for sure. But we should adopt the British system, where they have like a 3-month campaign, and then everybody goes and votes. Look, no matter what the Democrats tell me, I already know that I would never vote for a Democratic candidate of 1992.
Stay where you are, because I'm going to speak with some gay Republicans in the next hour, all the way from California.
Oh, that should be fun.
Well, I think it'll be a novelty. So stay where you are. You too, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jay Diamond on WABC. Right after we get back from the network news. Gentlemen, this is no ordinary Frank. Ladies and gentlemen, a broadcasting legend in his own right. A man with more accrued airtime than most Strategic Air Command pilots. Ladies and gentlemen, Frank from Queens.
Thank you. Jay, you know, I don't know if you'll be on Monday or Tuesday night because of the Jewish New Year. So I did want to call you and wish you and the ganze Mespucha that listens to the finest late-night talk radio ever in New York City, the Jay Diamond Radio Show, a very happy New Year. And I only hope, Jay, that not only are you going to be here next year at this time, but that next year at this time, Arnie will get a job, stop living off of his father. I understand he's grubbing money to go see the movies from his father. When he comes up and sits with his father to do the movie reviews, his father, you know, slips him $20 in his pocket. He says, "Go ahead."
You know, Frank, that isn't nice, Frank.
Yeah, it's a disgrace living off of a 72-year-old senile man.
All right.
But I want to say this, Jay, about you talking about Dinkins' political appointment. Did you see that vicious and evil Hazel Dukes to make those remarks about New York's finest? Jay, I demand that the city council institute immediately an OTB civilian review board so we can go with complaints and wonder where is the money going from OTB. She's got $20,000 to remodel her bathroom.
She's a very lovely woman. It's obvious from the expression on her face. She has one expression, Hazel Dukes.
She looks like she just walked into a gas chamber filled with hydrogen sulfide. That's the expression on her face.
Well, you know, she's the one who made that vicious remark.
About the Ecuador piece.
Yes, about our little brown brothers from South America working in the food and hotel industry, and she got away with it. So when you talk about putting Dinkins appointees in the trash basket of politics, I think Hazel Dukes ranks as number one.
In the recycling bin.
Yeah, nah, just put her in the dump area with the rest of the garbage.
Well, she's doing an excellent job over at the OTB. You see,
yes.
Have you seen the sophisticated ambiance that prevails in front of and inside every OTB, parlor?
Yeah, it's only the highest quality of patrons visit those type of establishments. And just think, Jay.
They look like little neighborhood port authorities.
Just think, Jay, next year at this time we can all be helping to subsidize OTB with our taxes. Isn't that wonderful? Paying for the gambling sickness of New York because of Hazel Dukes. That's the Dinkins philosophy.
All right, thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you the numbers again. D20. Hello, John.
How you doing?
Good.
Good. Good to hear the great Frank's voice coming back little by little, picking up strength.
What do you mean coming back? He's never been away.
Yeah,
What are you getting at, John?
it's inside stuff. But he sounds stronger than ever. Jay, you know, Bob Herbert must be listening to the Jay Diamond Show. Now, last night you were speaking about how jaded we're going to become as we see more and more violence around us. So he must have gotten the citation for his article today after listening to your show.
No, but it's true. If I had a kid, I would not allow that kid to go to a public school.
What is he won't be, the odds are he's not going to learn anything anyway.
Well, that's what you were speaking about here tonight.
Right, and at least he noticed it. At least Bob Herbert noticed that.
Well, you know,
but you know what it is, John, I don't want to trample on your time here, but this city administration is so concerned with the distribution of condoms and homosexual propaganda so that our students can become more perfect homosexuals. They have, you know, they used to dissect a frog in laboratories.
Yeah.
Now you perfect homosexuality.
Yeah, now you have to do a pearl dive into people's minds.
That's very good. But they're so obsessed with that the Chancellor Fernandez and Carl McCall on the Board of Education, the Dinkins stooge, who is on the Board of Ed, these people are the last thing in the world on their mind is teaching. The first thing in their world is pursuing the radical left-wing agenda.
Yeah, when was the last time we heard the words mathematics, history, world history, and
the only thing they want to teach mathematics in a rudimentary way so as to be able to perfect quotas.
Yes, yeah. Well, you know, Jay, the whole city's a mess. I mean, I don't even know where to start tonight. I'd like to know why in our police department, where they call each other brother police officers, there has to be a separate black group of officers, once again separating themselves from the mainstream. We're not keeping them out. The Guardians are a racist group. They'd rather support a black mayor who hates the police rather than stand with Phil Caruso, who was sticking up for them.
Really? Because they're black first and police are... I'm going to differ with you, albeit a little bit.
I think you're throwing around the word racist loosely a lot of times.
Don't they?
But that doesn't mean that if you do it, that it imparts more meaning to what you're saying. It dilutes what you're trying to say as much as it dilutes what they say. I don't know that they're racist. I think there's all kinds of ways to characterize it. But I don't know. You raise an interesting point.
No, but
there are benevolent organizations amongst... in other words, in the St. Patrick's Day parade, they used to have, the Royal Order of Hebrew Hibernians. The Jewish Irishmen used to march with them. So I don't know if they were setting themselves off or they were just...
you know, they're not doing it because they have... The first thing on their mind is race.
No, that's true.
Pride.
Right, that's right. Right.
How dare the Guardians complain about racism in the department when even revised, easier sergeant's tests were thrown out because they couldn't even pass them, and the last two police commissioners have been black. And you know, I was chomping at the bit the other night when you were saying when Hilly was looking for someone to challenge him. I was very tempted to break my own rules.
Hilly accused you of not having the gonads to appear in a debate with him.
Did you hear what he calls facts, Jay? He says, I'm ready to go. I'm feeling strong because I've got my facts straight. What facts is Hilly talking about? Police Officer O'Keefe. This is one of Hilly's facts. Police Officer O'Keefe went back to the precinct after the incident in Washington Heights and obtained the cooperation of numerous police officers and made a phony tape of his desperate cries for help and backup. Of course, none of this has leaked out, of course. Another one of Hilly's facts. The Tawana Brawley case wasn't a hoax. It really happened. The last man on earth to believe that. Another Hilly fact. Yanko Rosenbaum died because someone didn't notice one of his wounds. It wasn't the wound that was put there by someone Hilly would call brother. I tell you, this guy should write a fairy tale book. He'd be very good for children's fairy tales.
Well, maybe you guys can get together and put the book out together.
Well,
I know you're a big friend of his. You spend hours at a time on the phone with him off the air.
I know, like I told you the last time, I know someone who gives a racist like him more time on the air than any other caller. You know. And by the way, Eli criticized Giuliani yesterday. You know why? Because Giuliani is effective. So Eli had to find a way to put him down. I mean, no wonder Hilly and Eli likes Dinkins so much.
Only thing
They're in the same state of denial.
I'm going to put the Jew back in Giuliani. All right, John. Thanks.
What? To be continued.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Bye. On WABC.
Listen, anybody who has a cancer on the program can't be all that bad.
Anybody who what?
Who has a...
Hello, Frank.
It's a pleasure. You know, Jay, I've followed it with interest about Columbus Day. And to that individual who just spoke to you that says he teaches up at CUNY Grad Center,
Yep.
That's a hotbed of radical leftist Marxism up there. You can't teach up there unless you accept the politically correct crowd up there.
Yeah, well, you tried to get in there to get a book one day, and I noticed on the bulletin board there were sign-ups for the Venceremos Brigade.
You know, he talked about the Renaissance. There's a famous saying: the New World got Christianity and slavery, and Europe got gold and syphilis. Not only did it get gold and syphilis, it also got smoking. You know, they've given you this impression that the Indians were so wise. They introduced one of the worst, filthiest addictive habits ever known to mankind, originated among the American Indians.
I didn't know that. You mean the Native Americans invented smoking?
Yes.
The indigenous population?
Yes.
You mean European men did not smoke?
No, tobacco was not grown. It was grown only native to...
Well, I figured maybe it was grown in Turkey.
No, it was brought into Turkey.
Only Turkey did not cultivate tobacco before it came from the New World.
Exactly.
I didn't know that. I thought Turkey was indigenous. I mean, tobacco was indigenous to Turkey.
No, you see...
That's a nice leftist word, indigenous.
You know,
There are certain words that have that connotation.
Yes.
You know, the words that Nydia Velasquez used.
You know, I heard that pompous, politically correct, greedy Carl Sagan. You know, this who said that the SETI project, you know, the search now for extraterrestrial life, the radio signal. I don't know if you were listening to the news.
Oh, yeah, no, I know about that. I heard about that.
He said they're not out to convert the heathens or grab gold. Here's a guy who grabbed as much as he could with his books and his TV series. So he's a hypocrite and a pompous oaf. You know what they say about Carl Sagan? Ask him what time it is and he'll tell you how to build an atomic clock. The guy's a bore. But I want to say that, yes, each one of us that calls the Jay Diamond Show, do you realize that we all attain immortality, Jay? Because our voices go out into the infinity.
Yes, that's right. Somewhere they may be picked up someday.
Somewhere in the vast beyond, they're going to hear the Frank philosophy.
Do you realize that right now, I can just picture it. Picture the cosmos. Are you picturing it?
Yes.
Picture the eternal night of the cosmos. Picture that endless vacuum, Frank. Now picture the little bejeweled skies. Well, there are no skies, but the bejeweled cosmos. You're in the void of space, and you see these little twinkling stars in the distance, thousands and billions of light years away. And somewhere out on that furthest star, Alpha Centauri, there is the voice of Hilly, circulating lonely into space.
Well, he's a lonely old fool.
Could you imagine if there's some spaceman 1,000 million billion light years away, Frank, and he picks up WABC all day?
Now, believe me, if if they hear some of the radio vermin that call up, they'd never want to invade this planet.
But if they do invade, Frank, who do we want to be on the front lines with?
John from Staten.
That's
I want to be in the trenches with John.
You read my mind.
You know, Jay, the politically correct crowd, it's really insane what they're doing with Columbus. They've got crackpots like Ivan Van Sertima, John Henry Clark, Leonard Jeffries, who claimed that Columbus was not here, that there were others who voyaged before Columbus. And
well, they say the Norsemen came.
Well, they might have, but that was a dead end. But outside of the Norsemen maybe being here, no one was here. And when I argued with one of these crackpots, I brought up a point, and this should dispel the myth that there were those who were here before Columbus. There is not one plant that is indigenous to both the Americas and the Old World, not one insect, not one animal. And if there were voyages, if there was pre-Columbian contact, surely they would have brought animals with them, they would have brought plants with them, diseases with them. You can't look at a temple in Mexico, a pyramid, and say, well, it's obvious because they had the step temples and they had step temples in Babylonia, that the Babylonians or the Egyptians were here, when in fact there's no commonality of diseases or of plants. It kills them, it rankles them that great European Columbus was the first to be here. He opened it up to the world. I would advise anyone, take a boat. Wait, no, let me finish.
All right.
Take a boat. Go out into the sea at night. Go out 30 and 40 miles without a compass, without a radio, and go out and see how frightening it is. Could you imagine to go out onto an uncharted
Particularly if you're afraid you're going to fall off.
That's right.
But I told that other man. I mean, on the picture, also, they have to sail at night. Now, so during the day, picture this, Frank. During the day, at least you know that you're not going to fall off the edge in the immediate future, because you can always see the horizon.
That's right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
But at night, could you imagine the harrowing fear they must have had?
Sure.
Because you can't see the horizon. There is no horizon.
It's almost like riding the New York subway.
That's similar.
But let me say this also in parting, Jay. What's this about Bob Abrams? He called out the motto of fascist.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there's an excellent book on fascism.
Frank, stay there. I got a break, but I want to say something to you when you get back.
Okay.
All right, so stay where you are. And this is Jay Diamond on WABC. When you hear things with a radio legend, Frank from Queens. Frank, are you with me?
Yes, Jay.
You were in the middle of something.
Yes, it's an excellent book on fascism. It's called Fascism by Alan Cassels. And when Bob Abrams called out the motto of fascist, if you study fascism, first of all, fascism does not necessarily have to be racist, because the fascists in Italy, I was up at Cunia about 2 years ago. They had a seminar with these Italian military men from World War II. There's documented how many Jews they saved. You could read the book The Jews in Vichy, France, how the Italian fascists in Vichy, France, and the Nazis had running gun battles because they would not turn over their Jews. And he shows that fascism changes according to country. There's no one philosophy to fascism. It had no philosophy. Mussolini said you couldn't even make a philosophy out of fascism because since he invented it, he was the only one who knew it. So it's become a catchphrase of the politically correct left-wing human garbage.
Particularly when he went up there and addressed the students at SUNY Binghamton, he knew darn well he'd have... They tend to use that word without being precise. Students do. Students, I'm not saying every student, but I've been on campuses, and let's face it. Oh, this one's a fascist, and that one's a fascist, and anybody to the right of Russell Means is a fascist.
That's right.
Speaking about Russell Means...
Yes.
You know something? Remember what General Sharon said? I think it was during the Yom Kippur War. We'll show Assad that the road to Damascus is a two-way street.
Yes.
Well, speaking of of Columbus, isn't the road to San Salvador a two-way street?
In what respect?
Well, what would have stopped the forebears of Russell Means from sailing the other way?
That's right.
There were no traffic police there with a stop sign, so he could have gone the other way if he wanted, and then right now, in Spain, they'd be celebrating Russell Means Day.
Oh, and by the way, Jay, you know, we talk about the politically correct crowd who's so worried about the indigenous peoples of the America. It's the same politically correct crowd of trendies and lowlifes and left-wing radical garbage that supported the Sandinistas and never said a word when Russell Means went to Nica Nicaragua to support the Mosquito Indians, who were the victims of Sandinista genocide, who had their villages bombed and their land stolen from them, and were fighting as a second force alongside the Contras against the Stalinistas of Nicaragua. Isn't it amazing how Bob Abrams and the rest of this politically correct garbage have that sense of selective indignation? Thank you.
Wait, don't go yet.
Oh.
I want to grab you. I want to tell you that the turmoil is starting up again in Angola. I'm sure you've seen that, Frank. And the great freedom fighter, Dr. Jonas Savimbi, is threatening to cancel, to not recognize the fraudulent elections.
Well, I would hope that brothers Hilly and Eli will volunteer in an American Jonas Savimbi brigade to go to Angola to fight alongside the man who I consider the Black George Washington of Africa.
All right, Frank.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Frank from Queens on WABC. This is Jay Diamond making a great...
Jay, Curtis must have been using Dorothy from Montclair's old telephone. Didn't sound too good there. But, hey, Jay, what do you want to bet that Mr. Contrary, Hilly, is going to call and say eventually that he was at the trial, he knows everyone there, and he has all the real facts as to why Lemrick Nelson was really innocent, a la Tawana Brawley.
I won't take that bet, John.
You know what's coming. And, Jay, David Dinkins said after this verdict that justice was served. How come he wasn't so pleased with our justice system after the Bensonhurst verdicts, when he went to St. Patrick's Cathedral the following night and yelled to the congregation, they were all guilty in the first degree?
Yeah.
That jury's conclusion he refused to accept. And, to add to your great point about the $10,000 reward, he feels safe offering it because he knows he's never going to have to lay it out. The real killer was already found, and he knows it. And this is not the first time that David Dinkins has shown his anti-Semitism. He spent 3 hours on a hateful radio station, WLIB, and felt very comfortable with those anti-Semites over there.
When was that?
Oh, this was about a year ago.
Huh.
3 hours. On the day that a Jewish couple was beaten and called racial slurs and another Jewish woman was being buried, both the victims of black thugs. Dinkins had time to visit with the wife of a Haitian that was being sent back to Haiti, but he had no time to go to that Jewish woman's funeral. And when Phyllis Lapine was killed, David Dinkins says, she was a murder victim, not a victim of a biased crime, and that there are 6 homicides in New York every day. But when Gavin Cato, the black child that was run over by mistake, Dinkins managed to attend that funeral, yet there's also a lot of accidents in New York City with cars.
You know the pity, John? I honestly believe he will be reelected somehow.
This may have done him in, Jay.
I just don't think I wish you were right, but I don't think he probably won votes out of this.
I think that Jewish community, any of those Jewish people in those Jewish communities that were thinking of giving him a second
But
chance.
they never vote. You don't understand, or do you understand? Those people out there in Crown Heights never went for him. They were with Giuliani all the way. He knows that. That's probably what he holds against them.
Well,
They were not big. You're not talking about the Upper West Side.
Well,
You're talking about a neighborhood that's going 95% for Bush.
maybe it'll wake up those other people that voted for him to see what this man is really like. I mean, this is the same man that, you remember when the Jews wanted to march against Nelson Mandela? He subtly threatened them.
I do indeed.
And when they marched outside City Hall to protest his lack of action in the Alco Rosenbaum case, he just referred to them as troublemakers and refused to meet with them.
That other guy called up before, too, and said that, the Hasidics out there went for Dinkins. That is not true. That is not true. They had one of the highest rates of voting against him of anybody in town.
Well, I hope
And
the
he
pattern
knows
continues
it.
then.
And he knows it, and he detests them for it. And he is a man, I am told by sources in the media, print journalists, who hates his enemies and never forgets. And he hasn't forgotten that they voted against him about 90%.
Well, this is why I say that David... Hey, Jay, who has been railing about David Dinkins for the last year and a half on WABC radio? Half my phone calls have been about this guy, tearing this guy up and trying to tell everybody what the hell he's really like. This is not a nice man. He is a vindictive, vicious character.
Agreed. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you very much. Agreed, ladies and gentlemen. I think that... And ladies and gentlemen, a man immortalized on some of the finest WABC promos visits us from the most rural of boroughs in New York City, comes all the way across the Verrazano Bridge or the ferry, and we say hello to John of Staten Island.
Yeah, hi, Jay. Listen, when the next time you see Bob, would you do me a favor? Tell him I work alone. Stop horning in on the promotion for your show using my phone call. And, Jay, also, don't say it's unfortunate for us that Bob isn't there. He's great. But believe me, it's like having a choice of riding in a Cadillac or a Lincoln Town Car.
What a buddy.
Thank you. Jay, have you noticed how dreary the weather's been since Bill Clinton was elected?
I hadn't, but now I'll make note of it.
Now listen, before I get to the spatchim, I have a couple of remarks to make about a couple of things I heard this afternoon while I was waiting on the phone. You know, I wonder if anyone's going to bring up all the historical negative facts about Martin Luther King on his anniversary the way they did on the anniversary of Christopher Columbus.
I want to hear that, John, but first I want to tell you, and as much as you mention history, Tony Petrozzullo and Mark Herman, you know, Mark Herman is an actor, and Tony has a distinguished show business background as well, having appeared on Coast to Coast TV many, many times. They're both auditioning for the role of Falstaff in Henry IV right now.
Okay.
You know, they're trying to stuff turkey legs down their throat in one gulp. And I'll tell you, it's very stimulating for me to watch it.
Well, tell him to go over to the Cuban embassy. He'll get plenty of practice.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry, I
also,
interrupted you.
I have a suggestion for that guy who wants all black cops in black neighborhoods. Why doesn't he move to an all-black neighborhood in a black country in Africa? There's all black cops there. He'll get his wish overnight. This is one nation. And if he can't, or won't is more like it, if he won't assimilate, because that's giving in to the white racist system in his mind, then no one's stopping him from leaving, and good riddance. America shouldn't have to change everything all of a sudden because of certain people's racial obsessions. I'm tired of hearing that. We're one nation. Now, you know, a few months ago, Jay, I made a call to either you or Bob, and I said at that time that whenever people don't vote the way that liberals want, or polls don't reflect the liberal point of view, in their typical intellectual snobbery and arrogance, they'll say, well, those people had their arms twisted, or they're closed-minded, or they need to be educated. So what happens? After the people, a term liberals love to invoke, and who liberals say they care about, the people of New York reject Cuomo's proposal to create jobs that was on the ballot, and Cuomo says, that was stupid of the people to do. Now, 6 months ago, when David Duke was running for governor in Indiana, Mario said New Yorkers were too smart to elect David Duke to office. Now we're all dumb because we didn't go along with what he wanted. So when Mario thinks he can butter us up by calling us smart, he'll do it. But in typical liberal intellectual arrogance, we're all wrong and we know nothing when we dare to think for ourselves. Now who's the fascist?
Well, I'll prove the lie to their assertions, John. They keep saying that crime goes up when because there are no jobs. Every day, jobs, and the reason we have crime is because there's no jobs. But John, Dinkins' own phony crime statistics came out, and Ray Kelly came out with some false propaganda today that the crime rate is down. But let me ask you this question. How come we're in recession now with no jobs and the crime rate is going down? During the 80s, 85, 86, 87, 88, and 89, when there was nothing but a graph pointing straight upward at a 90-degree angle from one side of the graph straight up, how come the crime rate was going up then? So according to the statistics, John, crime decreases when there are no jobs.
Yeah, either that or I smell an election coming.
I smell it too, John. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks for the call.
Commissioner Kelly, I heard you mention something briefly about him this morning, and maybe you'd like to expand upon it. What do you feel about a guy whose first priority when he comes on the job is increasing black recruitment, and also goes to a guy like Sharpton in order to tell him how to best modify the police exam in order to bring in qualified
it wasn't only to modify the police exam. He consulted the Oracle at East New York for every purpose. It was a general symposium on everything that he should be taught by Sharpton about how to run the police force. Well, I told you, it's as though you're consulting Dr. Kevorkian on life support machines.
But what do you think
It's
about
a-
Commissioner Kelly himself?
I think it's a disgrace. I think that I had high hopes for Ray Kelly, and I thought because he was a person on the force, he would be respected by the rank and file. But I guarantee you, once the rank and file reads what I read today, that he's consulting Sharpton on how to run the police department, he will have lost the respect of the entire police force, black and white. Black and white. I don't see anything wrong with increasing minority membership in the police department. I think it's a good idea without lowering any of the standards, but I certainly think that it sends the wrong message to criminals, to troublemakers, to murderers, to thieves, to arsonists, to all kinds of rabble-rousers, that the police chief goes to sup at the table with Al Sharpton.
Yeah, it proves that he's an apple-polishing sycophant, and he'll do anything to get ahead, which he did. He espoused all the right things in the period when he was trying to get promoted to commissioner. He did. Now he's going to continue sucking up.
Ray Kelly lost my respect completely when I saw this in the paper. It's a signal to all law-abiding New Yorkers to head for the hills.
Yep.
Read Ed Koch's column today in the New York Post. But it's a signal that they're not even going to foist on the public the pretense of public protection. It's not going to happen here. When this guy sits down with Sharpton, it's a slap in the face to every lawful New York citizen. I'll say it again because it's important. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a decent person, a law-abiding person, the fact that your police commissioner, your new police commissioner, goes to sup at the table of Al Sharpton is a deliberate rebuke to you and a slap in your face and a threat to you and your children and your loved ones.
Well, the only thing is, rather than say this is time for everyone to move out, rather it should be a clarion call for folks to mobilize in next year's election.
Yeah,
That's a
but
better way to
well,
look at it.
hopefully they will. But it shows more than ever that we have to get rid of David Dinkins and Al Sharpton, and I'm sorry to say Ray Kelly. And my heart goes out to the police, who probably thought they had a friend in Ray Kelly. But any friend of Sharpton is no friend to the police. That much I can assure you. Thank you, George.
Okay.
On demonstrations. You want me to feel? Well, I'll make you feel at home. What's on your mind, Leo?
Very good.
You know what? I hate these guys. I'm going to say the next time somebody does that, I'm going to hang right up on them. How do you like that?
Right.
I'll give you my... I thought this was a personal call when Leo called.
Right. I keep forgetting.
When I take personal calls, Leo, people say, how are you, Bob? How are you, Bob?
Right.
Okay,
well, usually the calls I make are generally personal.
Okay, see, I felt that you needed that sadism. I felt that you were a masochist. And since I don't have a dominatrix here, I figured I had to deliver the sadism to you.
Okay.
All right.
Just a comment, using the fact as to why Mr. Clinton didn't have a summer home in Arkansas.
So what? What is the point?
Well, it's hard to have a summer home on $35,000.
Well, you see, Leo, you're in New York or in New Jersey. I am a devout New Yorker, so I understand. But you're forgetting something. Not only do you make less in Arkansas, you pay less for a house. You're not going to pay New York prices when you buy a house. Do you know what a rural house costs in Arkansas? Probably $70,000.
Well, actually...
Wake up! You're not buying a house in Great Neck.
The only point I was
Your assumption is that you make $35,000 in Arkansas and you pay a Gold Coast, Long Island, North Shore price. For a house you don't. You get a cheap house. You're not well-traveled. Thank you for calling on WABC. This is the voice of reason.
Well, maybe we'll do that.
Long time no talk, Jay.
Yeah, a couple hours.
Yeah, well, if they can have James and Joel, there's nothing wrong with Jay and John.
All right, John, I work alone, pal. I work alone, John.
Thanks for the introduction. Hey, Jay, Bill Clinton's promise to lift the ban on homosexuals in the military was a classic example of liberal pandering that has our whole damn country and the mainstay of our security, the military, in turmoil even before this guy takes office. But you know what the shame of it is that it was all unnecessary because gays, who are overwhelmingly liberal, weren't about to vote for George Bush, who definitely wouldn't have lifted the ban. They weren't getting what they wanted from him. And those who think it's not such a big deal, they don't realize what we're dealing with, Jay. Gays never join an institution with the idea of just being a team member and proud to be part of
Well,
something.
I don't think we should have any army anyway, John.
Yeah.
I don't even know why we need anybody in the
Well,
army.
I
Never
didn't want to
mind
mention-
straights or gays. I don't think. Why do we need anyone in the army?
Yeah, that's a great way of define you're speaking about without mentioning names. But, you know, Jay, there's always, at first, a hidden agenda. Then there's the disclosure, the recognition, or the, quote, outing. And this is why gays insist on marching in the St. Patrick's Day parade with a sign identifying themselves. They can't just march along with anyone else. The more traditional institutions they can show themselves being part of, the more normal they think they appear.
Well, did you realize that, are you going to the Thanksgiving Day parade?
I doubt it.
There's a gay contingent in it.
I knew there was a reason why I didn't want to be there.
I'm kidding. I wonder why they haven't. Well, maybe they should have a big, huge gay float. I mean that.
We won't identify what the symbol will be.
I wonder what it would be. No, you could have two big guys.
Steady now.
Yeah, no, I mean it. You could have, it could be like a shower scene.
You know, you should be a writer for Hollywood.
An autumnal shower scene.
Ooh, you're such a brute.
A huge gay Thanksgiving Day float.
Oh, well, hey, Jay, you know, speaking of parades, you know what I love? Whenever they have the gay pride parade, you'll see signs in it like, U.S. out of El Salvador. You know?
And you know, and across the street, a protester holds up a sign and says, you, out of the guy in front of you.
That's funny. I can't keep up with you. But, you know, let me end my phone call with a rhetorical question. Why would these ultra-left-wing gays, for the most part, not all of them, why would they want to belong to the United States military that supports causes totally opposed to their philosophy, for the most part, unless there was another goal? I don't put anything past these treacherous, devious characters.
You should meet my friend Howard Hurwitz. Dr. Hurwitz
yeah.
and you.
These homosexuals.
That's very good, John. Hey.
Okay, we've exhausted it.
Uh-oh, the guy's doing my act, ladies.
What's the rules of engagement?
The guy's doing my act.
Thank you.
That's a great Dr. Howard Hurwitz imitation. All right, have a good night, John. And if I don't talk to you, happy Thanksgiving.
You too, Jake.
Okay. I have a lot to be thankful for. This time last year, I didn't have Staten Island.
Thank you.
John, I know you're just warming up for tomorrow morning when you'll be calling Lynn Samuels.
No, actually, I wanted to save it for you tonight, Jay. Jay, speaking of London, you know who's from London, or was from London?
Did you hear that, Poster?
Yeah. They have a funny sense of humor over there, huh?
Speak for yourself.
Yes, Stan Laurel was from London.
Well, you're not going to compare Stan Laurel with this guy, are you?
No,
I love Stan Laurel.
The two best ever.
Weren't they great?
And no filth.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Hey, hello, what's your name?
Hello?
Yeah, I'm Nick.
Yeah,
And this is Little Nick.
yeah, right.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know you. The Snitchers.
Why didn't you tell me it was you? Well, it was so dark, I didn't think you'd hear me.
That's good.
They were so great.
Well, here's another nice mess you've gotten me into.
Oh, they were great. I love them.
I'm Mr. Hardy, and this is my friend, Mr. Mac Laurel.
Hey, you know, Hal Roach just died recently, unfortunately.
Yeah, he just about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, 100 years
Isn't that
old.
amazing? The man who invented Spanky McFarlane died in 1992.
Huh. You know who was another great character from those movies, Jay? Jimmy Finlinson.
Oh, I do. My good eye.
There's, you know, and there's...
You know something, John? Hilly was in some of those pictures.
maybe he was Jimmy Finlinson.
Could be.
That's about as far as his vocabulary takes him. But, oh, Jay, you know, we've got to have a laugh, but they don't last for long because, you know, isn't it sickening the way that some sore winners who hate George Bush so much that they're not satisfied that he lost the election, that he must be doubly frustrated watching one report after another about the improving economy, that his mother just died. Now they have to accuse him of a sinister motive for doing a good thing because he's taking action that some African countries aren't taking, but should be taking to save hundreds of thousands of lives. They say he's doing it to leave Bill Clinton in a mess.
He's doing it to extend vicious American imperialistic hegemony over the shining, noble continent of Africa. Don't you understand? You're a damn fool, John. Don't you understand the reason why those soldiers are there? This is just an excuse to put American foot soldiers on the continent of Africa.
Yeah,
don't you understand that? This is just an attempt by the Republicans to take over.
Yeah. Well, to show what hypocrites they are, first of all...
No, Hilly will call up and accuse Bush of wanting to take back some more slaves.
Yeah, or take advantage of all the natural resources over there. They're going to wipe them clean. And then they go around shooting all their elephants for the ivory, not leaving a one left. But,
those people, don't forget what you were going to say, because I want to talk to you, but those people that voted for Bill Clinton got what they deserved. They're going to have to go in front of their TV set every night and listen to that George Stephanopoulos.
Yeah.
That guy makes me very nervous.
And, well, there's one guy that's worse than him. What's his name? The head of the Democratic Party, the guy who looks like Jesse Jackson.
Ron Brown?
Ron Brown, yeah.
Well, no, but Stephanopoulos is particularly annoying.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd get along with Dr. Hurwitz very well, if you know what I mean.
Yes, yeah. The limp-wristed ones.
Yeah, he seems that way, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not my imagination.
I didn't like him since that night he called up on the Larry King show and sneaked in that call on President Bush and zapped him and then tried to say it wasn't a setup.
Well, they're prone to those kind of things, those guys. They like those sneaky
And they call Republicans sneaky.
They like to be silly. But it's okay for Stephanopoulos now, because maybe now I can get into the Army.
Yeah, well, Jay, first of all, if there was any president that was left a mess recently, it was a Republican president named Richard Nixon, who inherited the biggest mess in our history from a Democrat, LBJ, who lied to us all along about Vietnam.
Oh, what about even closer to home? RR inheriting the mess from Jimmy Carter.
Yes. We may never recover. Bill Cosby, who contributed $50,000 to the Tawana Brawley hoax, he hasn't offered to send a dime to Somalia. And Barry Bonds can afford to turn down a $38 million contract from the Yankees. He hasn't offered a dime. And to show who's really sinister and racist, Michael Jackson is under fire now from certain circles.
For giving money to Bosnia?
Yeah.
You know something? I think just to put it in their face, you should send a dime to Somalia.
But, hey, look, the reason George Bush wanted to send an overwhelming force to the Middle East was because he was concerned about casualties and he wanted the war over fast. So he is concerned about American soldiers. He didn't send them over there for politics. Oh, and how dare Jesse Jackson say, this is good because it's the first time we've been willing to put U.S. troops at risk for black people. Maybe he never heard of the Civil War where 150,000 white Northerners died fighting in a cause that resulted in the end of slavery. And U.S. troops were sent to the South a lot of times during the 60s to enforce civil rights for blacks. And, Jay, those troops were considered as much of an enemy when they went down there as the blacks in the South at that time. They were in danger.
Well, then, no, but I'm happy that Jesse Jackson said that. So presumably, if anybody shoots at these American troops and they shoot back, he won't be upset. Maybe the American troops should be given water guns, just in case somebody gets tough over there.
Yeah, those power water guns. Get the ones that are out, what do they call them? The water guns that...
Yeah, the ones that get people mad.
Yeah, right.
All right, Johnny.
Well, thanks a lot, Jay.
All right, thank you for calling.
Bye.
Who is that? What the heck? They'll let anybody up here. They'll let anybody up here at WABC. Don't we have a security team to avoid people like this coming? All right. One of the more preeminent sportcasters.
Jay.
Oh, Frank.
Yes.
The immortal Frank.
That's right, Frank Fever, catch it.
Frank Fever is gripping New York City gripping the metropolitan area, gripping the suburbs, making its way into New England, down into Maryland, expanding west toward Chicago. Where will it stop?
Who knows, Jay? But Jack called to thank you about mentioning those heroes who died at Pearl Harbor and those who survived and went on to serve their country in the greatest feat in the history of humanity, defeat of not only of the Japanese Empire, but of the Axis powers. Jay, I think you're just about the only talk show host who had the decency to mention it. The liberal left will always be silent. That's a day of silence for the liberal left. But come the day that the Japanese Empire was paid back in kind on the bombing of Hiroshima, they're all tears and weeping and gnashing of teeth and sitting around singing Kumbaya as they sensitively talk about those whom they call victims, forgetting who started the war, where it was started, and how it was started. Jay, if 51 years ago yesterday you'd have heard of the bombing on the radio and gone into a state of suspended animation and awoken on the same date, December 7th, 51 years later in 1992, if you'd have awoken in Times Square and walked down what was once truly the Great White Way, if you'd have seen the signs for Japanese products, if you'd have seen the signs for the Japanese cars, if you'd have seen the multiplicity of Japanese restaurants, Jay, there's no doubt about it. You would have then thought that Japan had won the war. We won the battle. They won the war. They Pearl Harbored us economically. They have a vicious hatred for us, and they mask it behind their facade of pseudo-civility, of sensitivity, but they hate us.
Frank.
Yes.
Frank, did you hear about the Japanese restaurant that won't serve Americans?
I was just about to speak about that.
Please do.
What a tragedy that, and this is how they are in any country, and that is part of their culture and their nature. Any country that they feel that they have a foothold in it. Could you imagine in this country, in this city, New Yorkers of all races and stripes cannot go in. Americans.
Right.
Did you see that old broad that runs that place when the reporter went in and said, "Hey, I'm an American and you're not serving me"? She was chasing them out. She was putting her hand over the camera. Is this what our boys fought and died for them to come to our country, suck everything they can out of it? Do you know that's what they did in the Japanese quarter of occupied Shanghai? They had signs in parks, in hotels, no dogs and Chinese allowed. If you study this is nothing.
Where was this?
This was in Shanghai, China.
I mean, when it was occupied?
Yes, prior to the outbreak of World War II. They had what they called the Japanese. Shanghai was divided among international powers, and they had the Japanese occupied Shanghai, and they said no Chinese or dogs allowed. They murdered in what I call the hidden Holocaust, the unknown Holocaust, between 40 and 50 million 40 and 50 million Chinese. They said of the Chinese, they're like dogs. If one dies, we can always get another. I did a paper in college on General Yamashita, the Tiger of Malaya, who was hanged, thank God, for his crimes against humanity in Southeast Asia. And they had a book, a pamphlet that every Japanese soldier had before the invasion of Singapore. It was called "Read This and the War Can Be Won." And they described the Chinese as parasites and lackeys of the European powers. They went into, they occupied illegally Korea, 50, 60 years. They forbade upon death. Koreans could not, we say, why are the Koreans so stoic? Why are they so unemotional? They had to learn to hide their emotions during the occupation, because if they would speak the language, if they would dress in their national way, the Koreans would be murdered. They were brutalized. Look at those comfort girls, those poor Korean women, young girls turned into whores for Japanese soldiers, and it's just coming out now. Look what they did in the Philippines. They are a duplicity, treachery is second nature to them. And what they did in Pearl Harbor, unfortunately...
Well, Frank, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Finish up your thought, because then I want to say something.
Okay, just want to say that it angers me so much that the left cries when they told the peace bell at Hiroshima. They never told the peace bell for any victims of theirs in World War II.
Frank, I have an idea. Were I given to publicity stunts, which you know I'm not.
Yes.
But if I had an aptitude for staging publicity stunts, I could think of a great one, and maybe you'd want to help me.
Yes.
I'll get myself a uniform, complete with Mountie hat and jodhpurs. I'll play General MacArthur. And wait, who was General MacArthur's adjutant?
Gee, I'm not...
All right, wait. I'll get a corncob pipe.
Yes.
The the outfit he wore with the jodhpurs
Sure.
and the Mountie hat.
Yes.
I'll get that with the corncob pipe, and you will dress up as his first, adjutant.
Yes.
We'll get John from Staten Island to be the second deputy, and we will take Tobata Restaurant.
Oh, that's an excellent idea, Jay.
You know what? Didn't tell you this, but I tried to get in there about a week ago. No, and I was hustled out the door. And as I was leaving, you know what I said?
What?
I shall return.
You should, and you know what? I'd like to hear the mayor of this city tell everybody to boycott that restaurant.
Oh, State, he's here. He just walked in. Oh, the mayor is here. You mean to say that I'm going to be featured on WABC with the great Frank?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's a pleasure to speak to you.
Frank, though you have opposed me, I do not resent appearing with you because you are truly the Frank.
Why, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm really pleased at the 3 R's that you're teaching. What is that, rubbers, rectums, and ramrods? You've really innovated the school
I
program.
commend you on your memory.
Are you going to boycott Tobata Restaurant, or you want to boycott the Cincinnati Reds, Mr. Mayor?
Frank, I am here tonight to launch my new anti-riot initiative.
What is that, Mr. Mayor?
I know that you have opposed those who riot throughout your long and distinguished broadcasting career. And now I can tell you that I have formulated a secret plan to end rioting forever.
What's that, Mr. Mayor?
I have paid a contractor in Cedar Falls, Iowa, to produce 11 million do not riot signs to be posted all over our city.
And do you think, Mr. Mayor, that that'll have a calming effect upon the rage of the rioters, or do you think that they'll just ignore it?
Well, you make a point that's of interest, Frank, because for those who have not yet attained literacy, I have paid for another 11 million signs for those who cannot read.
What will that be, Mr. Mayor?
A picture of a man torching a store with a line through it.
That's a brilliant idea. I guess that's going to earn you another 4 years.
That's what we say, 4 more years. Stay the course.
Yes, and thank you.
Thank you. That was Frank, and that was the mayor of New York. On WABC, let's say hello to Randy. The guy calls up a radio station, and he's going through a reiteration, a replay of the discussion he had with the guy in the control room.
Well, Jay, I want to thank you for your concern for those who have their jobs threatened because somebody doesn't like what they say. I went through that about 1.5 years ago. We won't go into the details, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Jay, I want to also thank you for staying on this subject of this racist Jesse Jackson. This guy doesn't deserve American citizenship, much less criticizing another American. Sticking his nose into the controversy surrounding baseball, this is just another example of his taking advantage of a current event to keep his puss in the camera, spouting the rhetoric, and the racists who follow a guy like this, they love to hear him say things like this, because then they start sending in the contributions. They keep coming in so he can wear $1,200 suits while he makes speeches about the homeless. And at least Michael K's living isn't being made on rhetoric. And as unnecessary and insipid as Operation Push was, why doesn't Jesse talk about the jobs that a lot of black people lost when he bankrupted Operation Push? He's so concerned about black people's jobs.
Well, he's a bully. It's one thing to be concerned about jobs for any people, but by the way, and then every 4 years when it comes time to run for something, he makes out as though he's not just a black leader, but he's a leader for all poor people.
Yeah, the Rainbow Coalition.
Well, that's so what I want to make clear to the people of the United States, all those suckers who listened to him in Michigan when he was campaigning there in 1988, when he suckered all the auto workers. This is a guy who, if you have a job, he resents you for having the job because you're not the right color.
Yeah, of course. The way it is with all of those rhetoric kings.
The fact is, the man is a bully. A bully. He shoves people around. He throws his weight around.
He's more than that.
He
as far as I'm
intimidates
concerned.
people, and the time has come to stop taking him seriously.
Yes. Jay, why haven't we just totally disregarded him?
Well,
Here's
I
a guy-
do, for the most part.
I do, too, but there's too many who haven't yet. Here's a guy who lied about his being next to Martin Luther King when he was shot. Here's a guy who expressed his dislike of Jews and more
Even
than
had he merely limited his insipid remarks to something as follows. Well, we don't feel there are enough blacks in baseball executive positions. My feeling is that nobody has to apologize to anybody for hiring people. However, if he said that, I would not have been offended. But when he specifically singles out a person whom I know to be a good and competent broadcaster and a decent person, a good person, and he makes that, he vilifies that person for no reason, and Michael Kay is innocent, then he's crossed the line. He is playing games with somebody's job and somebody's livelihood, and this is a truly bad person.
Well, maybe
he's a bad guy.
Maybe he hasn't heard of affirmative action, where so many blacks throughout this nation have gotten jobs that they don't deserve because of this insipid program. And I got news for you, Jay. The people who follow Jesse Jackson and Jesse Jackson himself will never be satisfied and admit that we're on an even playing field. Because to do that means that they now have to say, we don't need your help anymore. We're on our own. They never want to say they're on their own, because then the freebies will have to stop.
John, I have a question for you. You heard the conversation with Frank?
Yes.
The allusion?
I wouldn't miss one.
The allusion he made to the Japanese restaurant?
Yes.
That will not let Americans in? The Tobata restaurant? The fact that I wanted to dress up as General MacArthur?
Yes, yes.
And have Frank there, and I want you there. Will you come?
Are you kidding?
Will you?
We don't even have to ask.
Because, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people may not know, but John from Staten Island is a decorated hero of Vietnam.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And it is the truth. You don't boast about it often, but you're not just a big talker. You were there in the trenches fighting the VC.
And I was proud of it, Jay. I'm not one of those Vietnam veterans that has a chip on my shoulder and now speaks against my nation. I happen to think that we did the right thing over there, and I will. Anytime you're fighting communists, you were doing the world a favor. And I wonder if those Japanese are going to pay Americans reparations, like $20,000 apiece.
Yeah, for kicking him out of the restaurant.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you and I and Frank go take back Tabata restaurant for the American side?
Yeah, and you know, I'd like to have a poster of that made up, Jay. You know, like they have the revolutionary poster, one guy playing on the drum, another guy carrying the flute.
Yeah.
That'd be you, me, and Frank.
Taking Tabata.
Thank you.
Thank you. On WABC, this is Jay Diamond, and is this man's name Nike?
Jay, let me say first that Sunday marks the beginning of Hanukkah, so I want to wish you and the Gunston J. Diamond Midnight Sevra out there a very happy...
Frank, we're not on another station. We're on an English-speaking station, Frank.
And I would like to say that, you know, for Hanukkah we think of those brave Jews who cleansed the temple and drove the pagans from it. And we think of a modern-day Maccabee. He's not a Jew. He's a Gentile. He is a righteous Gentile. John from Staten Island, the one-man radio commando. You know, John, Jay, if they wanted to clean up Red Hook, all they'd have to do is parachute John in and just let him do whatever he felt is necessary. But I want to say this to you, Jay.
You mean by any means necessary?
Yes, by any means necessary. And you know, I don't want to dwell on another caller, Jay. I think you know me better than that. I never speak of another caller. I want you to know this. I never said I hate Hilly. As the co-founder of the Frank and John Radio Alliance of the Air, never said we hate Hilly. I may find his politics.
You know, that's a good name for a TV sitcom.
What?
I Hate Hilly.
Yeah. We never said we hate the old-timer.
Yeah.
We never said we hate him. We never said anything. I find his politics revile, revolting, disgusting, repugnant, racist, anti-Semitic, bigoted, stupid, ignorant, and insane. But I don't hate him. I really pity the guy. I pity him because he's so bereft of any...
You consider that amalgam of half-truths and psychotic deceptions as politics?
Well, I mean, a guy has to be psychotic. He dreams up these paranoid fantasies. He sits at home and dreams them up, like Officer O'Keefe had 2 days to make up phony tapes. I mean, this guy Nimmons had 2 weeks to concoct his fraudulent story. I don't hear the old-timer calling it up. But I find that I don't hate the guy. He's you know what he is? He feels that by mentioning me, that somehow it'll bring a modicum of recognition to him. He's bereft of any personality. He's bereft of any self-esteem. So he is, you know, Jay, I want you to know something. I'm known in Brownsville, East New York, as the white homeboy. I mean, I'm known. I have my ear to... When I walk down the street, they say, hey, how you doing? And I asked them about Hilly. I said, what about Hilly? I said, he shot his load 20 years ago in Ocean Hill, Brownsville. He's just worn out. I found out, I heard he even used to run a speakeasy years ago. But, you know, I want to say this. The guy, you have to give him credit. He was in the Army. He fought against the Axis for America. And he's got to get rid of this hate. He's got to get rid of this anger. It's eating him up. I mean, a guy at his age, he doesn't have much longer to go. Let him sit back and relax and enjoy life.
Frank, are you ready for Talk Fest 92?
Oh, you mean Christmas Fest 92?
Christmas
Yes.
Fest.
That will be a year-end compendium of all of the issues that face talk show callers. In the year behind it, it's going to be a huge success, Jay. I can't wait for it. I know you can't wait for it either.
That's true. Okay, thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
John.
How you doing?
Well, do you think that will work, my plan for Haiti?
Well, I think so, but your plan may work. But I'll tell you, Jay, I'm not even going to worry about that until it happens, and I have no control over it. If it does happen in such a way that we don't like, I will speak out against it. I have a direct line to the White House.
I bet you do. Why, has he got a radio down there?
Well, I don't know. Maybe David Dinkins seems to have a radio. I think all these officials who are always criticized have radios.
Now, wait a minute, John. I must rebuke you.
I ought not to say that.
You ought not to.
I got a new shtick. Well, it's not new. It's one we just realized.
Well, it was that caller who clued us into it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Caller, whoever you are,
Yeah.
John and I both thank you.
How dare that one get by us? Jay, I wanted to speak a little bit about Saddam and then a little bit about Jesse. And to me, they're both not that far off. They're both troublemakers. I say that if knocking Saddam Hussein was never one of the UN resolutions, then I think we've had plenty of time and incidents to realize that we should make it one of the resolutions or goals. And I wish we had struck back with more force, but at least we did respond with some force. But wait till you see what happens, Jay. There's going to be certain commentators, some of them on this station, that are going to say, this is just George Bush trying to prove his macho and get his licks in the last days of his administration. You know, we're never right. And at the Marvin Fitzwater press conference this afternoon, some of the press were already trying to stir up some anti-American trouble by worrying more about Iraqi civilians and suggesting that we may not have taken enough precautions to avoid civilian casualties. So here we go again. No wonder the military doesn't want these frauds around. And now Jesse Jackson. What nerve for this guy to say that Marge Schott needs to be really rehabilitated? Jay, this is the man who said after the Kent State shootings that the National Guard should have turned their weapons on the Jewish landlords.
Did he say that?
He said that.
No,
yeah.
where did you get that quote?
I'd have my sources.
No, really, can you document that?
Well, I will try.
Well, where did you hear it?
I had heard it from a good friend of mine who is very politically inclined.
Well, I'd like to see, that's difficult for me to believe,
well,
that even he said that.
So far, I have never told you anything that didn't turn out to be true. I will try and document it for you. And he also said that he's tired of hearing about the Holocaust. We all know about his Town remark and spitting in the food of white people. Now, you talk about the pot calling the kettle black. Jay, this is the man who has to keep reinventing himself. See, he's not running for president anymore. His show is a flop. So any situation that comes up where he can cause up a little trouble, he gets his face in the news.
I would like to see him go back to the way he used to look. I liked when he wore the fatigue jacket.
Yeah.
I liked him in the fatigue jacket.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the fatigue jacket, Jesse Jackson, was circa 1978 through 1984. The minute he announced for president, he started to wear suits. But prior to the fatigue jacket, do you know what his apparel of preference was?
Yeah, a dashiki.
You're right. That's exactly right. That's what he used to wear.
I agree. We could call him Link. Link
No,
Jackson.
no, I like Link. I'm sorry. I like the Mod Squad, and Link was always a favorite of mine, so I don't want to insult Link.
I'm just talking appearances.
Did
you
Link
know.
wear a dashiki? Oh, yeah, when he was undercover.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Link wore a dashiki. That's right. And the other guy was a hipster, too.
Well,
all right.
No, this man is a walking menace, Jay.
He's a troublemaker.
He is.
That's what
Thanks
he
a lot.
was. All right. Speak to you.
Take care.
Thank you, John. Stanley, you're on WABC.
Of the anti-gays in the military position as you'll ever hear, and you might be interested. And then we'll get back to the phones about caller ID or whatever else. Controversies over official policies toward homosexuals in the military are not only serious in themselves, but are also painfully revealing as to the kind of thinking or lack of thinking by advocates of accepting gays into the armed forces. Many arguments run along the line that all that legitimately matters is the individual's own job performance. It is one of the signs of the utter unreality of our times that adult human beings could seriously apply this atomistic view of the world to an organization which is the very antithesis of individualism and in which the stakes are life and death. Military success or failure, which is to say the fate of nations, does not depend on individual performance, but on group coordination and group morale. Whatever policies emerge in the military must recognize that central fact if they are to deal responsibly with the lives of young people who are put in harm's way for the sake of their country. It's hard to imagine how anyone who has ever lived in a military barracks can seriously suggest that open homosexuality there will do anything positive for group morale. No doubt there have been homosexuals in the military before, as there have been homosexuals in many other walks of life. But no one is concerned about what people do privately. It's official acceptance of homosexuality that would make it an intrusion into the lives of other people as part of everyday barracks life. Privacy is not to be found in military barracks, nor are military relations egalitarian relations. Given the rigid hierarchy and the degree of subordination inherent in military life, any form of sexual activity between military personnel is fraught with explosive dangers, even in peacetime. In combat, when members of a platoon under fire have to depend on each other for survival, what does it do to that unit's cohesion when soldiers know that some of their comrades are lovers who are likely to look out for each other rather than the platoon? Does anyone doubt for a moment that official acceptance of homosexuality will be only a prelude to demands that homosexuals not be, quote, discriminated against, which is to say that any adverse decision regarding an individual who happens to be homosexual will be a potential lawsuit? And does anyone expect either military discipline or morale to be unaffected by all that? Without discipline and morale, what is a military unit but a disaffected mob? We need not limit ourselves to speculation. As homosexuality has become increasingly accepted on many of our leading college campuses, gays have become another privileged class. Students have been punished merely for daring to criticize the homosexual lifestyle. On some college campuses, men's toilets have become rendezvous centers for homosexual activity to such an extent that gay activists have published annually updated guides to the best places for such encounters. Can you believe what I just read? I'll repeat it. On some college campuses, men's toilets have become rendezvous centers for homosexual activity to such an extent that gay activists have published annually updated guides to the best places for such encounters. Toilets and libraries at Georgetown University, Howard University, and the University of Maryland, for example, have made that list. Holes have been drilled in the toilet stalls to facilitate anonymous homosexual activity from Dartmouth to Georgetown to the University of Florida and the University of California at San Diego. Concentrations of young males in institutions that accept homosexuality have proven to be magnets for gays. Toilets at the University of Florida have attracted gay men from as far as 40 miles away. Are we now to turn the military into another concentration of young males in an institution that accepts homosexuality? When you can't even go to the toilet without being a witness to or a target of homosexual activity, we are no longer talking about how someone does his individual job. Can anyone imagine how soldiers, Marines, or paratroopers are going to react to such situations? The last refuge of the advocates of admitting gays into the military is to analogize the military's resistance to their past resistance to the racial desegregation of the armed forces. But such analogies are strained, and they certainly do not prove that military leaders are always wrong and politicians are always right. Are we prepared to bet young people's lives or the effectiveness of our armed forces on the presumption that Pat Schroeder knows better than Colin Powell? No small part of the social problems of this country today derive from 3 decades of blith disregard of factors which transcend the individual. Social norms have been waved aside as mere superstitions, and public decency has become something regarded as quaint, if not oppressive. After a chilling string of failures of the 1960s social philosophy in civilian life, deteriorating education, soaring crime rates, disintegrating families, growing drug addiction, zealots are now ready to apply it to the military. I thought that was worth bringing to you over the microphones on WABC. We'll...
Two.
Yeah.
It's about time you had him on. He sounds good on the air. Jay, I was listening to Bob's show this afternoon when Bob asked a caller who was advocating gays in the military if he was gay, and the obnoxious caller responded with the cryptic, "That's none of your business." But you know, Bob had every right to ask that question because the public has a right to know if he's being objective or if he's basing his whole biased argument on his homosexuality. And secondly, the attempt of gays to always align themselves with blacks is a typical sneaky tactic of gays to gain sympathy. And it doesn't hold up. You know, the lifting of the ban on blacks in the military, Jay, wasn't about to cause the spread of a deadly disease because of their color. That's why the fear of blacks in the military was more unjustified. But there is a very real physical danger of placing gays who are prone to AIDS, as we all know, in a setting where there's a 99% men, a critical institution like our armed forces, not to mention their devious agenda of having the taxpayer pay for their medical expenses when they eventually get AIDS, and having the government pay for some of their household expenses when they finally win the battle to have gay lovers declared a family nationwide. And that's one of their goals. They figure that if they can break into the military, pressure the military to recognize gays living together off base as a legitimate marriage and couple, they can eventually point to this significant step as justifying nationwide recognition.
You know, you better hope David Dinkins is never elected president, John. He'll probably require a day of, he'll probably require a national holiday for a gay leader.
Yes, well, that would be...
I wonder what, we'd have Andy Hum Day.
Yeah. And
it would be January the 69th.
Who's that other joker who is now in the city council down in the village?
Tom Duane.
Yeah, that troublemaker. You know, Jay, gays never just join an institution with the idea of just being a proud member. They always have to be watched because they're always on a secret agenda. And this is why they insist on carrying banners. They figure the more legal institutions and traditions that everyone sees them in, the more normal they look.
Well, John, it's the zeitgeist, though. It's a sign of the times because, face it, the last 2 years they couldn't muster enough people for the Veterans Day parade. But there's enough gays for 3 parades. The Gay Pride Parade, the Halloween Parade, and now the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Mm-hmm. Well, all
Maybe
parades
they
should be eliminated except for the Memorial Day Parade. And that's the one parade I'd love to march in because you know there's not going to be any politicians in that parade because those poor guys are dead. Bye.
All right, let's say hello.
Hi, Jay.
How are you?
Jay, once again, we've seen the mental sickness of Hilly the Hater. I'd like to know, what caused the riot after the happy occasions of the Chicago Bulls winning the championship and the Detroit Pistons winning the championship? Were blacks oppressed because their heroes won the championship? What happens after every Hell Night in Detroit when they go on the rampage, burning and looting just to have a good time? What happened after the Diana Ross concert? Another happy occasion. Hilly says riots are caused by downtroddenness. Well, these were happy occasions. And, Jay, it's bad enough that Marge Schott is being made a victim of the double standard, but to be taken to task by an anti-American racist hypocrite like Jesse Jackson, who said he's tired of hearing about the Holocaust, who spit in the food of white people and referred to New York as Imitated, and then pretended he was sorry for political purposes and ran for president without being challenged seriously by any of the other candidates. He should be Marge Schott's judge. And let's not kid ourselves, Jay. He could care less about any alleged anti-Semitic remarks. He was probably happy about them. I mean, he was only concerned with the remarks that he thinks will incite blacks to send in more contributions to him. It's the same scenario as we saw during the Apollo Theater when they were honoring the so-called liberators of the camps. They weren't interested in they didn't have any sympathy with the Jews. They used the Jews. If there weren't blacks being honored that night...
Well, my question to him, which he didn't answer, was why is his sympathy inclined toward those who riot? Why isn't his sympathy inclined toward those who are rioted against, meaning innocent people with businesses, innocent people on the street, whether it's in Crown Heights, whether it's in Los Angeles? Where are his sympathies for those Koreans in Koreatown who were burned out? Where are his sympathies for the Jewish people, the Lubavitcher community of Crown Heights? Where are his sympathies to the victims of the rioting? When by rioting is a very antiseptic word, John. What I'm really talking about is beating, killing, stoning, stealing, and knifing, and shooting. Where are his sympathies to the people who are the victims of those specific crimes that I just enumerated? Let's not call it rioting, which is very antiseptic. It doesn't carry the harshness of the words, the actual deeds that happen in a riot. And by the way, he says people riot because they're oppressed. Well, when you're stabbed, when you're shot, when you're looted, when you're beaten, and when you're robbed, are you oppressed? Is that oppressive?
So.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, the answer, Jay, is that he has no sympathy for other peoples. He has to make excuses for things that blacks do that are wrong, because he just can't bring himself to admit that blacks are their own worst enemy. They always have to find a scapegoat.
Well, I'm gonna modify what you say just for accuracy's sake. Blacks are not their own worst enemy because David from Irvington is black.
I'm sorry.
And so radical blacks,
yes,
hating blacks, the opposition, are their own worst enemy, but they will never understand that, as all radicals will never understand that they, in fact, are colored by their own hatred. They see the world through the prism of their own internal anger. Excuse me, rage.
Yes, well...
John, I've got to run because I'm late for commercial.
Blood, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, with the lynching of Marge Schott today and the double jeopardy trial opening up in California in the Rodney King case, we had a double standard lynching today. And Jay, have you noticed, I'm sure you saw the headline in the Post today, David Dinkins, who said last year that he will never forget the poor, hasn't wasted any time using the money from the increased tolls coming out of the pockets of poor people to improve the image of Gracie Mansion.
He won't forget the poor because he desperately wants to keep them poor, because he knows that's one group who'll vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
Because he pays them a lot of lip service, but he does nothing to improve their lives. Not that he can. No government can help you. You have to help yourself. No president, governor, or mayor is ever going to help any one person.
He won't forget their pockets, their wallets.
Maybe you can give them a pep talk, but he gives them the wrong kind of pep talk. He tells them that the world hates them and that it's hopeless and that only he can deliver them.
That's right.
And in fact, nobody can deliver you but yourself.
And this is the man who keeps saying that Washington has done us in financially. And then he didn't learn his lesson spending $11,000 for a headboard and hiring people who have robbed the city blind. No, in his defiant attitude and his arrogance and self-importance, he's leading that new mentality that's in City Hall now, that's saying, we're in power now, we're going to get ours while we can.
I don't want to say anything. I'm never going to say anything critical of the mayor again, John. I know that'll disappoint you. But I'm never going to say anything critical about him again because I'm frankly scared. So, I mean, you can say what you want, but I won't. Well, actually, John, the thought police were here earlier today, and they made a minor adjustment through some electrosurgery on the frontal lobe of my brain. I love Mayor Dinkins. I respect Mayor Dinkins. Mayor Dinkins is my savior. He is my personal savior. Mayor Dinkins is my leader. I shall follow Mayor Dinkins and the Reverend Jackson, Jackson, Jackson.
Better watch it, Jay. You're going to start to sound like Hilly.
And I
Around
will...
every radio talk show, you have to be with a special host, a host that you can admire. So I want you to feel as comfortable as a jelly bean on a hickory plate.
Hello, John. This is Jay Diamond. Hi.
Jay.
All right, it's enough if I do it, John. I'm only doing it to be sarcastic anyway.
Picking up from where we left
I
off.
used to be good enough for you, John, but I don't know.
Two nights in a row.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Where are we, pal?
You know, I don't believe the short-sightedness of even some so-called scientists. The original purpose, before I get to that rat Dinkins, the original purpose of the super collider was to perfect nuclear fusion for an unlimited source of energy.
Is that right?
That was the original purpose, and it still is the purpose.
So is the other caller was wrong?
As far as I'm concerned, he was.
Okay.
I mean, sounded like he was trying to, it sounded like the Tower of Babel. But that was the original purpose, and it still is, and I hope they perfect it, because I want to get the jump on the rest of the world, and especially the Arab world. We'll never have to go and fight another Middle East war. Now, Jay, I was glad that Al called with that revelation before about David Dinkins' remark when he went to Japan.
Yeah, that
Mayor?
surprised me.
Yeah. Oh, does it? Well, I don't think it surprises us, but the mayor of all the people, Mr. Mosaic, has done it again. Does he go to Japan as an American? No. He's there to improve relations between the Japanese and the Afro-Americans. You see, he has to make these trips overseas, Jay, to appear as though he's doing something helpful because he's been such a flop in every area here. Let him stay here and renounce the one-sidedness he's shown in favor of blacks, only through his words and his deeds and his inaction, in many cases, at the expense of whites and Jews and Asians, and repair the damage he's done here.